one of the first signals that you should let something go and realize that it's not going to work out how it is, NGMI, as people say today, is that it's taking more energy than it's actually giving. There's a strong caveat to this. If we're going to make an impact on the world, if we're going to have a positive relationship with a potential spouse, someone we're dating, or someone that's a life partner, if we're going to have a good relationship with a family member, chosen family or otherwise, a good friend or whatever, if we're going to do good work in the world, as far as in a broader sense, that's going to require energy. Right now, it's cloudy or it's a little bit cloudy in Vegas. I have a little bit of an allergy thing going on, but I'm committed to showing up for you guys. So even though I'm tired right now, you might be able to see it in my eyes, but I might be tired right now, but I'm still showing up for y'all. Whatever you're going to do is going to require energy. The key thing here is that once you put the energy out there, it's going to have to come back. If you're putting your energy into things where either it's not coming back at all, or the time it takes to get that energy back is way too long, we're talking like several solar years, then it might not be worth it. It might be worth letting it go. I think one of the challenging things that I've dealt with, and perhaps you've been in that situation too, is you put your time, your energy, all the resources. I talk about that in my book, Build From Now. You talk about you put your time, your focus, your agility, your time, and your energy, the things I talk about in Build From Now, into a particular thing, and then you're pushing it, and you're like, I'm expecting to get that energy back. The energy could be love, it could be money, it could be additional resources, it could be gratitude. You talk about the 5 different love languages. It could be gratitude to say, hey, thank you for working so hard on that. And so you're expecting that to come back. That's okay. It's okay to have those expectations. Those might actually be your needs, right? We all have needs in that. Things get complicated though. And I've been in a situation a handful of times where, have you ever realized you're hitting your limit? Whether it's putting your financial resources into something, or the amount of time, emotional labor is what I'm really getting at. You put into something and you're like, you know what? This is wearing me out, or this is feeling stressful. I can feel it in my body, which we'll get into in a second. Yeah, I can feel it in my body. It's wearing me out and so forth. But you know what? If I just push a little bit further, then maybe it'll pay off. Now, we all have our crunch time. I've done 2 startups. I sold the second one. You can learn about it in my books or earlier in the channel, early in the earlier episodes of the channel. Again, you go to bringyourworth.tv. You hear me talk about my different sagas with startup worlds. And you're going to have what in Silicon Valley and in the tech world they call crunch times. You're going to have crunch times where you're going to have to push yourself really hard. Like, there's different projects I'm working on right now, and there's certain timings with them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm really tired right now. Excuse me. Like I said, I have allergies right now. So I'm really tired. Like, let me push a little bit further. I cannot wait to show them to you, by the way. They're in the last lap. I cannot wait to get them to you. But that's like a crunch time. It's like, there's a deadline for this. I need to get out at a certain time. Y'all might be expecting it, or a certain group might be expecting it. That's fine. But then when that becomes a default, that's when we get into trouble. And there's a moment when we've done enough. And then there's a moment where we've done more than enough. There's a moment when we've done enough. And then there's a moment where we've done more than enough, where we've taken it further. More than enough is okay some of the time. But if you're going to go to more than enough, there's 2 things that need to happen. The first thing that needs to happen is that you need to recognize that you're going over your limit. Sometimes we don't do that check-in physically, mentally, emotionally, that we're going over our limit, right? So we'll go ahead and say, oh, well, I'll just push a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further, and then not recognize that we're way over the line. To paraphrase Charlie Murphy, we're being habitual line steppers. There's a line right here, and then we're going to keep going. Rest in peace to Charlie Murphy. We're just going to keep going. if we stay in that status, we're always going to be overtaxed. We're going to be overregulated, as they say in the psychological world. We're going to be overregulated. We're going to be doing too much. You're doing too much. When people say you're doing too much, that's what they mean. You're way out of bounds. And you're doing so much that you're actually intruding on, frankly, the opportunity for other people to do things. And then you're also, of course, stressing yourself out, which is where we get burnout and other types of things that we don't, right? Other related trauma, frankly, that we're dealing with. The second element of that is that we don't recognize when we're going too far, but we also don't always see that whatever more we're putting in, at a certain point, we're not going to get it back. It's almost like a half-life if you think about science, or I keep on thinking about orbits. The time it takes for, let's say, the planet Uranus to do a full orbit, it's like 278 years or something. I'm still into astronomy. So it's like 278, let's say 300 years for the planet Uranus to go all the way around in orbit. There's no way in our lifetime we're going to see the whole orbit. So it's almost like us putting energy into something, resources into something, where there's no way in hell it's going to come back. Ever. At least not within our lifetime. Now, if that's part of our plan to say we're going to work and build something beyond a lifetime, that's fine. But us stressing ourselves out and overtaxing ourselves with the assumption that, number one, not recognizing we're pushing ourselves too hard. And number two, that whatever we're doing, we're basically pouring into an empty vessel because we're never going to get the energy back, is a dangerous combination. That alone, when you are not going to get the energy back, once you admit that to yourself, you got to let it go. It's kind of required, because our job here isn't to burn ourselves out or to get ourselves in a place where we're overtaxed and overregulating. Again, my favorite psychological word right now, overregulating, and we're doing stuff that's way out of bounds. That's not our job. If we're in a relationship and the other person isn't contributing, I don't mean not contributing as much, because relationships are kind of give and take, but they're not contributing at all and you're not going to get the energy back, that's a lost cause, respectfully. If you're in a co-founder situation and your co-founders aren't pulling their weight and you're burning yourself out, the scales have to balance. They have to. If you're pursuing something and there's no kind of energy that you're going to get back from it, that's a tough conversation you're going to have with yourself. And for better or for worse, no one else is going to pull you aside to do that, because only you know what your limitations are. You might have certain limitations that are like financial, where you literally can look at a bank statement and be like, oh crap, I'm going broke. And you might be able to share that with someone, and or a team or whatever, you can make an adjustment for it. But those more ethereal, abstract, invisible resources, I call them, only you would know that. Only you would know if you're about to burn out. No one else can do that. You can have mentors, you can have spouses, you have people that care about you, people that love you, but only you would know where those boundaries are. So we're really talking about boundary setting. Shout out to Brene Brown. Boundaries. That's what we're really talking about. If you're in a situation where you're putting all your energy into something, you got to do the calculus and say, am I ever going to get this energy back? Am I ever going to recoup? And I don't mean just financially. Because you not allowing yourself to be whole again, because you're investing into something that's not going to get you your energy back, that's not what we're here for. That's not your job. The best book that I've read recently, oh man, I love this book that talks about it. This book, The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. I've never said his name out loud, even though I've read this book. You see all the, see, I'm starting to lose my voice again. You see all the dog ears. There's actually some bedtime reading for my kids, even though it's some intense stuff in there, but there's some great passages in there as far as emotional intelligence. This book is a bestseller for a reason. You've probably heard people say this over the past decade, particularly if you've been in the same circles I have, where they say the body keeps score. Number one, the title is officially The Body Keeps the Score. So I'm going to be real about it. I'm a fellow author. I want to respect Dr. Dirtico's, process. What it basically means is that whatever we're dealing with, and he talks a lot about trauma, but whatever we're dealing with, the body doesn't forget it. So if you go through something that's really intense, that's still being held. Now, it could be held on an emotional level, on a mental level, and on a physical level, right? On a mental level, you might have forgot about it. In fact, you might have pushed it away, and at least as far as you're consciously aware of, which he gets into. But you're like, oh yeah, that breakup, or when that company didn't work out, or when I got fired from that job, I'm over that. Whatever, whatever. Mentally, you might be going that, doing those gymnastics. Emotionally, somebody brings it up, you might feel a little way about it. And you'd be like, wow, you still have some feelings about it. You might be like, nah, I'm alright, I'm good. The body, though, the body keeps the score. Excuse me. And so when you have, it's almost like having a somatic, which means physical or body. It's almost like having a somatic memory. Like you might remember something that happened to you when you were in fourth grade. Remember it in your mind, fine. You might not remember. You might remember how you felt with whatever happened in fourth grade. But it's saying the body keeps the score. And if that stuff isn't processed, whether it's going to therapy, talking it through, sitting with yourself, forgiving yourself, forgiving someone else or a situation because of the circumstances, letting go of some of the guilt or the shame related to those circumstances, whatever it happens to be, then your body will find a way to hold on to it and process it. And it could come up with some nasty stuff. And so he's a doctor for a very long time and did a bunch of studies that are related to how the body keeps the score and holds on to those particular things. Not only does the body represent those things that we might be repressing or those things that we want to forget about and we haven't dealt with, but it also gives signals as far as us being in situations that are, my favorite word of the year, untenable. Untenable means that it cannot go on, it can't hold. It's too unstable, not gonna happen. NGMI, not gonna make it. The sooner we recognize that, the healthier, frankly, we can be. And so we've been in those situations. I'm sure you have, particularly if you're a grown adult like I am. At least I am most of the time, where you have a particular situation that you're in, and suddenly you catch a cold, and you're like, I can't shake this cold. It's like, well, there might be a stressful conversation that you need to have that you haven't had yet. You're in a particular job situation that you know is not right up for you on some level. You're putting in more energy than you're getting. It's untenable. And now you're like, your body's basically saying, keeping the score. So it's not just the score. It's not just a score of stuff that you might be repressing or not want to deal with. And then, it's coming back in something that's happening with your body, reminding you to deal with it on these other emotional and mental levels. It also could represent a signal of you being in a situation that on some level you're putting too much energy into. And your body's making it direct and saying, hey, I'm going to go ahead and make you trip on this stair. I'm going to go ahead and give you allergies or whatever, even though it's more weather related. But I'm going to go give you allergies just to pause you so you can think about what the hell you're doing and maybe make some other decisions. And then the rest of the body, your mind and your heart, your emotions will thank me for it. Excuse me. The book is filled with stuff like that. I cannot recommend the book more. We're almost at the end of the year. This book came out like 10, 15 years ago. This might be my book of the year. I love, love, love this book. This book, along with Trisha Hersey's Rest is Resistance, kind of see a theme here. They're both fantastic books. Cannot recommend them more. Maybe by the end of the year, I'll do my favorite books of the year. But this is one of them. Top 5. Woo! This is so good, so good. Highly recommended. And the doctor's still around. In fact, I have some colleagues that are trying to meet with him to he does like conferences and speaking engagement stuff. So they're trying to go to one of his events. Man, I envy that. Bless them. I hope they have a wonderful time there. But the doctor does not play. He doesn't mince words, and it's so wonderfully written and analytical as well as very humane. Can't recommend the book more. My live show from a couple weeks ago, almost said a couple years ago. My live show from a couple weeks ago. I swear it wasn't a couple years ago. Excuse me. 5 secrets to making change and transition. Live Q&A, episode 393. The link is right below. Or if you're watching one of the other platforms, just come to bringyourworth.tv, and the link is right there while you're watching this episode on another platform. One of my favorite live episodes probably I've ever done. And I talk about the 5 steps to going through a tough change and having a better transition. Briefly, change is what happens on the environment, what happens on the outside. Transition is how you handle that change on the inside. So transition is more about emotions and adjustment and things like that. Change is the circumstances, whether they're initiated by you or not. As Liz Gilbert talked about in her brilliant TED Talk, she's done 2 TED Talks. She has 1 TED Talk about change. And it doesn't matter whether it's a good change or a bad change, quote unquote, or if you initiated it or if you didn't initiate it, doesn't matter. We're still going through the same change, and our bodies react in that same way to as far as to change. So we might as well get used to transitioning in a healthy way, whether it's going broke or winning lottery. It doesn't matter. All the body knows, it's back to the body, all the body knows is that things are different and it needs to adjust. Excuse me. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown. You can learn more about me at damonbrown.net. I'm here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. You're watching BringYourWorth.tv, episode 395, approaching 400 episodes. You can catch me live on Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Standard Time, Vegas time, as well as the archive of episodes, all organized at BringYourWorth.tv. With got playlists, all that stuff, whatever you're into, I got you. Especially after 400 episodes, chances are I covered some of the stuff that will help you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. You can subscribe for free at that messy link below. I look forward to these links being a lot shorter. That'll be on my that'll be on my media wish list, but I have no control over that one. And you get the complete Bring Your Worth collection right now, wherever books and audiobooks are sold. You can listen to the audiobook right now at bringyourworth.tv. All right, so the first element of that, excuse me, is if it's time to quit something, it's taking more energy than it gives. It's taking more energy than it gives.